this naturalism, this voyeurism, this hyper intimacy between these men, all catching all the things that are not said is the most interesting thing about a scene, right?
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Today's episode takes us behind the scenes of director Heidi Ewing's new drama, I Carry You With Me. The film tells the story of Iván, a young aspiring chef in Mexico who is working to support the mother of his child. Iván begins an affair with a handsome teacher, who, unlike Iván, is out as a gay man. After their relationship comes to light, Iván makes the painful decision to cross the border to advance his culinary career, promising his son and newfound love that he will return. I Carry You With Me is Ms. Ewing's feature directorial debut. Her other directorial credits include co-directing the documentaries Norman Lear, Just Another Version of You, Detropia, 12th and Delaware, and Jesus Camp. Ms. Ewing spoke with fellow director Rodrigo García about filming I Carry You With Me in front of a virtual audience. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Everyone, welcome. On behalf of the DGA and myself, we're here to talk to Heidi Ewing about her wonderful movie, I Carry You With Me. So many questions. Like I said to you just before, I like to go into a movie not knowing a thing about it. And I think when movies work, it's really not only hard but unfair to feature one thing over another. So, but I will, just for the sake of this in particular, what I found particularly good about the movie and poignant is that it presents as one thing and then it kind of turns into another thing in the best way. And it's you say, oh, I know what this is. It's a gay love story. Well, it is, but not just that. And oh, wait, immigration and, travel, finding love, separation, identity. But it's kind of ever evolving in a very organic way that feels a little bit more like life. I like that. I liked, for example, that, and I promise we're here to listen to you, not to me, but I just want to give you some idea. I just want to give you some idea of the things that captured me. It's a love story with some obstacles, but it works out. Obviously, the stuff with the son is more problematic. He wants to make it across the border and he wants to do well, and he does. So it's not a matter of dreams not becoming true. Some dreams become true. Some things are always going to be a problem and always bother you. So there was, I think that's one of the most remarkable things, that the movie doesn't feel, massaged, manipulated. And I also had the extra treat that it didn't occur to me that the guys were the real guys until I saw the photos at the end.
Oh, okay. It happens to some.
Which then in retrospect gave it all a great lift. So what on earth made you think that you could make a movie about some Mexican gay guys in Spanish?
Well, there must be something wrong with me. I look in hindsight, I realize how strange maybe it seems or appears, because I was asked about it so much when I opened at Sundance. For me, I've known these guys for so long. They've been my friends for so many years. We've known each other over 15 years. And so
how did you meet? I'm sorry.
We met in a bar. A wine bar, many, many years ago on my street in the Lower East Side. I used to go there after work on the way home. My husband and I would go in there. And one day, Gerardo walked in and he was funny, and the salsa music came on and we were dancing. And then Iván showed up, and it was a very easy, natural friendship that began like that. They worked in the neighborhood at a restaurant. Gerardo was the bartender and Iván was like the sous chef, or, he was working in the kitchen at a restaurant up the street. And I liked to speak Spanish, and we just got along. And so it was a very easy friendship for many, many years. And obviously we became closer, and we began to frequent each other's homes. They came to my wedding. But there was always, I didn't know that much about their families. They didn't talk that much about home so much. They worked 7 days a week mostly. So, for whatever reason, we didn't really get into the depth, and they were a little bit guarded about that, to be honest. And so it wasn't until 2012, which was like 7 years into our friendship, they came to see Detropia, a documentary I made about my hometown of Detroit, at Sundance. And they came, and they'd never been to Sundance, and they'd never seen the snow like that, like mountains and snow. And we had a great time, and they were so excited. And the night before we all left, we spent an evening talking till very, very late, and they told me their life story. That night, they told me, Iván said, I have a son. He's 18. This is how we got to the United States. I crossed the desert. This is how Gerardo came. This is what happened. We haven't seen our families in this many years. And I was gobsmacked, and I was kind of ashamed of myself, because I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I hadn't asked enough questions. I hadn't asked the right questions. Why did I assume things that weren't true about that?
Well, in all fairness, they're not easy questions to ask.
No, but I guess I should have, you're right. It was like, I don't know why I felt that way. I thought, how could I not know? How could I, we're friends. And it was one of those things, and it hadn't happened to me like that ever. And I realized what kind of sacrifice they had made, not just to be here, but to be together. That Gerardo did not need to come. And Iván and some, it was a very complicated immigration story. It was something that really, really opened my eyes, because mostly what we hear about is someone is fleeing from narcotraficantes, someone is impoverished and has to earn money for their family or their sister back home. And those things are also true in some cases, in many cases, but there's also people who have an ego, have a dream, think I could be appreciated somewhere else. My talent is not being utilized. There are other reasons why people come. And the reason Iván wanted to come was complicated. And that's why in the film, there are layers of complication for his arrival and why he came and what happened to him here. And so it was a story I couldn't shake, Rodrigo. I couldn't shake it. And I thought, my first instinct, of course, was I should make a documentary about this. This is such a compelling story. They're my friends. And we started talking about a film. And then I sat down and we did 3 days of interviews with them with 2 cameras, beautifully lit. It was like dinner with Andre. We were just chatting, and there were mirrors, and they told me their life story, and it was lovely. But then I realized, as I started filming moments in their life, I realized pretty quickly I was filming the third act of a movie, and that all the epic nature of their love story, and also their childhoods, which are so important to the formation of who they are and the relationships with their fathers, because in many ways, this is a movie about fathers and sons too, in many ways. And I didn't think I could make an excellent movie in doing what I know how to do, or which I've done many times, which is mostly cinema verite, but the documentary form. And so I said to them, I think something different needs to happen here. I think this needs to be like una película, like a narrative. And I've never done that. So it was a whole new scary thing. It was either put it away and just keep this as something between you, or try to use a different form of cinema, and try to do something you haven't done. And so I decided to write the movie. And I got Final Draft, which was a big deal for me. I was like, I'm going to buy Final Draft. That means I got to write the movie. I can't believe I got to buy Final Draft. It was just like that funny.
What would you say was the biggest hurdle, the biggest change from the mindset of documentary to the script writing?
Well, I'll tell you, like the first draft, wretched and terrible and so bad. Maybe the first few drafts, but they'd be talking at the bar, or in a scene, it would be a conversation scene. And then one would say to the next, well, what happened to me when I was a kid? My father, he was a drunk, and we used to sell tamales at the taxi stand, and it was really funny. He would pull out the speaker and he would tell people, hey, fatty, buy a tamale. And my dad, can you imagine? At one point I was like, I can just show it. It's like,
yeah.
I I missed it because it happened 25 years ago or 30 years
Yes,
ago.
in a documentary, you wouldn't be able to recreate it, but here, yes, you can show it.
It's just such a silly thing, right? The mentality of like, there's so much talking in documentaries, and there's so much. This was like, oh, I will just cast a child, and the funny thing is, there is so little dialogue in this movie. I mean, I wrote a 112-page script. The final movie that you saw, even though it's full feature length, it's 70 pages of
Well, I wouldn't say there's very little dialogue. There is the dialogue that needs to be there. You know, I think sometimes when people start to write scripts for the first time, they are often very scared of dialogue. And dialogue is, I think, the more you write, the more you realize it's the easiest part. It's not easy, but it's the easiest. You know, and you've got many scenes that are. I mean, you have so many scenes between them that are very loaded and pregnant, and where they exchange 6, 7, 8 lines, sometimes 4. Also, very good job, you know, casting the younger versions, especially the bridge, which is the hardest to make, I think, from the teenager to the young man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just they really those two actors really had the same tenor to them.
Yes, they
You
did.
know, and of obviously to the real guys.
That was
Ivan,
hard.
the real guy has a great presence. I mean,
He feels like a
when I saw him in the, you know, one of the first scenes, there's some close-ups of him in the subway.
That's right.
I thought, where have I seen this actor? I mean, he really has. I mean, the other guy too, but this guy is striking.
He's very striking, and that's something that always I was very I always was that was always very appealing presence. And Ivan is a man of few words. You know, in español mucho más, you know, but in English he's also very economic with words. Ivan.
Well, I just want to say he is a few words, and he's got 2 very short sentences that are incredibly powerful, which is, I am not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, you are my surprise.
That's right.
Holy crap. What a great, you know, in some ways that line, you are my surprise, summed up for me the non-cause and effect part of the movie. You know, it just seems to flow along like life, and here it works, here it doesn't. This pans out, this was forgotten. And so that feeling, yeah, you are my surprise. You know, it's a wonderful thing to say. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you know, and that I'm so glad you pointed that line out, because that line is dialogue. It's said by the actor. It's said in voiceover, but that was something he said. That was one of the few things in the movie that it was said to me by Iván. He said, I always thought, he said it to me in the first interview, I always believed that there was, I believe in destiny, and I believe that God gives us one surprise in our life. And Gerardo was mine. And he said that in the very first interview we did on camera, and I was struck in that moment by the thought of it. And it was one of the few things that made it into the mouth of the actor. So it's amazing.
Well, it's a wonderful idea, because it's not just how lucky we were to find each other, but that despite the obstacles, it worked, and that it has continued to work for decades. You know, it's anyway, you're married. Marriage doesn't have to be explained to others who are married. You know, you have to feel that you're lucky. You have to feel that it is a surprise. I mean, after all, it's two, and the movie does this also, you know, it's, you know, we forget sometimes in love stories that it's 2 total strangers, 2 universes coming together. So, yeah. You always thought they would be in it once you were writing, or you thought, no, I'm going to cast actors to play them?
Sure. I wasn't sure. My compulsion was to continue to film them at important moments in their life. So what you see of them is cinema verite, fly on the wall. Nothing is scripted when the actual Iván and Gerardo are in any scene ever. So I continued as I wrote the movie. I live in Manhattan. They live in Brooklyn. I had a little a grant from MacArthur, and I had some support, so I could continue shooting. I wasn't sure if they were going to appear in the film, or I was going to cast actors to play them, but yet I kept filming them just all the same. Maybe that's my habit. I came to the conclusion, you know, pretty early in the process, I guess midway through the process, that I felt I didn't want to cast actors to play. What they were undergoing was that I didn't think an actor could do better than they were doing, just being themselves. And I knew it hadn't been done, and I knew some people weren't going to like it, and I knew some people weren't going to get it, or they were going to say, "Oh, but the actor doesn't look like the real guy," or whatever. But I couldn't bring myself, Rodrigo, to cast actors to play them. I thought I wanted people to experience these men in the way I had experienced them, and it was a formally unconventional decision, but I took it, and I decided to just go for it.
Because I didn't know it wasn't them. I assumed they were actors. So there you go.
Did you wonder why it started looking so different, though? Were you wondering why the style had changed so much visually? Did you say why?
No, because this was 15 years later in New York.
Right.
More
digital, more rough.
I just thought this was the chapter that I was in.
I love that.
And also, as to their resemblance to the young guys, it's neither bigger nor smaller than you would have had with any actor.
Probably.
You did as good a match as you can do, and this is just, it's one of these things we do in movies, which are, we all agree that this is the actor, this is the character at 21, and here he is at 46, and we're all going for the ride. So you would not have gotten, any more resemblance. In fact, if you had opened that can of worms, I think the pressure for you to cast the 1, 2, 3, 4 people that mean something,
I was also afraid to age them. I also was worried about aging these young men. That often does not work. Even in the $80 million range films, it is the aging of an actor. Sometimes I didn't think that it would work.
It wouldn't have, and I tell you why in retrospect. Because where the two guys are, they even have a physical mass to them that is middle-aged, that is mature in a masculine way, the way their body is, the way they look. It's very hard to get that with young men in makeup and in aging. Mm-hmm. Because you're still growing into your 40s, you're still growing. Mm-hmm. There's no diminishing. There might be diminishing of something, but I think men are still blooming in their 40s, and women. So I just think I think just even their physicality. I remember them clearly when they're talking about the red lamps, and then there's also a very nice sequence where they dress up, right, in like an excellent blue suit, and have a night out.
Yes. Oh, they go out to quinceañera. They're going to a quinceañera.
They look super, super sharp,
super handsome. At Sundance, the biggest shock I had was what you just expressed to me, which is not knowing that they weren't actors until the credits. I didn't know. I assumed people would guess, but I don't know why I assumed that. I assumed it. And so here at Sundance, in every single screening, when the pictures came up at the end, people gasped. They were like, "What?" It was
wonderful. It was wonderful because here's the thing: you have a movie where all the actors. Arcelia Ramirez is well known, but mostly, and certainly to foreign non-Mexican audiences, everyone there is new.
Right.
So. Right. There was no way they were going to stick out.
Good point. Yeah, Arcelia was
I thought the two young men were great. The young Iván. By young I mean the middle one, the 20s. Yeah, he was. He brought a lot of feeling to it, a lot of inner life. He had a softness to him, and yet he had his drive where he said, "I'm going." Mm-hmm. Even if I lose you, even if I lose my son. He had that drive. And then the other, what's the other actor's name who played the young Gerardo?
Christian Vasquez.
So charismatic.
Yeah.
It's like, of course you saw him and you fell in love with him.
The chemistry between the two men, I do chemistry casting. I cast Iván Armando Espitia first, and then I spent months trying to find a match for him. Yeah. And for other actors I saw, but when I put them in a room together, nothing happened. And these guys had never met. and there was some electricity what happened in the audition, and I said, oh my God, this is the pair. I gotta do it.
Yeah, that happens. So I love to hear directors talk of their pain. So how did you talk about, directing actors for the first time? Did you rehearse? Did you not? And also, how experienced were these younger actors?
Armando had been, I speak who plays Iván, had been at Cannes with Haley. And
oh, that's right. I didn't remember him, but yes, that's
very
what.
Young,
Yes,
young. He's been in mostly in independent films. So he is becoming more known in that area. He's really sort of taking off now since this film. But he had a few films under his belt. Now Christian, who played Gerardo, comes from the Televisa world, comes from the TV world, comes from the rom-com now. Very famous among a lot of people, a heartthrob. A lot of women love him. He never played a gay role, and he doesn't do many indies. So they had completely different needs. And they reacted to different kind of direction. And they really had nothing.
Can you give me without betraying, just an example from a technical point of view, the approach to one as opposed to the other?
Yeah. Christian was more used to, who played Gerardo, he wanted to know where the camera was going to be. Were we in close up? Were we here? Were we there? And good questions. They're not, they're good questions. Good questions, but I didn't need him to know if we were in a close up or not. It wasn't helpful for him to have that information. Not for the kind of naturalistic cinema I was going for. Not when I was trying to let the camera also float and not anticipate the action. And I gave my cinematographer license and freedom, and I was bringing with me that some of that voyeurism that comes with documentary. I'm sure you felt it in the film. There's an imperfection. Yeah. And so if the actors delivering one performance in the close-up and a different, it was not helpful to me. And so that was the kind of information I wanted him to stop thinking about that. Just because of the way we were shooting the film, and it's very different than television. And it was so that was one thing. Whereas Armando, he needed, I found that interruptions were not helpful. So listen, I love having the word cut. I don't care about action. My first AD called action. I don't care. Cut was mine. Cut is beautiful because nobody can stop until I call cut. And so what I would come in during takes and give a tiny direction and whisper in one of the other's ear, and we would keep rolling. And Armando did the best that way because he would really get into something. And the kind of interruption that happens after calling cut is often very unwelcome. I was not used to it. People were rushing in, wanting to change the set, move the coffee cup, change the hair. This was
the room goes a little cold.
This is not, and of course these are things but this was my first narrative, and I was like, what the hell is happened? What just happened to my scene? I don't want the coffee cup to be moved. His hair is fine. I don't care about these. I mean, the light is fine. Like, it was just all this fiddling. And I'm not disrespecting the crafts people because they're excellent, and I know they were
doing. Doesn't matter. It's whatever. It's every director likes what they like. It
didn't help the scenes. So that was something that I really started playing around with, of like when to even cut. And instead I would just enter the frame, tiny adjustment, walk out, and they'd keep going, especially with the children who are incredible actors. They get distracted. So that was something, but directing.
I love that boy who gets, that actor, the boy who gets taken out to the field.
We call him Pequeño Marlon Brando.
He was terrific.
That kid's a natural. I'd never seen anything like that. The crew and cast, everybody was just done by him. And his mother was like, I don't know where this comes from. There's no one in our family when he came to audition. But directing actors, you asked my pain and my insecurity, was directing actors. I spent a lot of time with Adrienne Weiss, a directing actress coach in New York. I took classes with her. I practiced with actors. I was extremely nervous about that.
But it seems from what you're saying about going in and giving pieces of direction that you did learn that thing which it takes. It's a whole journey for new directors, which is go in, say little, do little.
That's right.
That's very hard because a lot of new directors feel like they have to go in and explain the universe to the actor.
I was definitely learned to not do that before even going on set. The little went a long way. I didn't do line readings or say, I learned ways that the actors would. I also never gave them direction in front of the other one. So the other didn't know the direction I'd given the other one. So there was all these surprises happening in the scenes because I would have him try something else and the other guy would have to react. So there was a lot of spontaneity and surprise. Also, certain actors I learned, like Raul Briones, who's very well known in the theater in Mexico, and Luis Alberti is well known in Mexico. Some actors are great at improvisation, and I had to detect who those were early, and others are not.
Who played the guy who sings in drag?
Luis Alberti.
Yeah, that was good. I thought he was very good.
He's excellent. He's a big star in Mexico now, a rising star. And, he just did great with improv. So I had to learn also as a director when, which actors would do well when I let them go looser and which ones should really not do that. Cause then they would fill the scene with words that I didn't want. Yeah. So it was a process of elimination. We did rehearse. Armando did not like it. I realized that some actors don't like it. We would go through the script. We would rehearse certain scenes, but it would depend on the actor. But I did have rehearsal time. What about you? Do your actors do you insist that they all rehearse with you? Do some actors who not want to rehearse?
I come from being a cameraman, so I don't come from theater. So when I started directing, I did not want to rehearse. It made me very nervous that things could happen that then I would miss or that would never happen again. I mean, I do like, obviously, to sit around a table, read through the script, talk, chew the fat, just break the ice, create some glue. But over the years, I've worked more and more with actors who come from theater. I worked several times with Glenn Close, and she loves to rehearse. Mm-hmm. And I did something with Holly Hunter. She could rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, not just, and she's ready to rehearse. She's willing to rehearse not just with the other actors, but with anyone who will read with her. It's just something that she needs to do.
But if she's not doing on a table, she's actually doing the scene. You are actually
sometimes on her feet, yes. Oh. But so I've learned to get more comfortable with rehearsing, mm-hmm. Because I know. Now I know that especially one of the movies where I rehearsed the most, I did with Glenn Close in Ireland, and we had all the actors came from theater. Everyone was Irish, English, came from theater, and they were all happy rehearsing. So that was, that was a real learning experience. It took the fear of rehearsing away from me because I not only do I not like to rehearse, I like to direct as little as possible, mm-hmm. Just wait and see for things to happen. And then, but no, let's go back to you. You don't get off the hook that easily.
No, I love hearing about people's
who's your DP? I thought the work was beautiful. I think it had there's just so many. Let me tell you something. Every so often, with some frequency, but not as much as necessary, I used to say to my daughters when they were little, I can tell if a book is written by a good writer from the opening line. And they were like, oh, Dad, you're so foolish. Sometimes I could tell when that blue field appeared, I said, she's a director. And then that's followed by an over the shoulder of him walking that field. I thought, she's a director. So, but the contribution of your DP, I thought was really wonderful. I mean, there were some, and the mixture, the mixture, there's such a rich mixture of colors, but not the classic colors that you see when you're making the Mexican movie,
Yeah.
but some very strange blues and some very peculiar oranges, and the whole scene in one monochrome. So how did that come about?
Well, his name is Juan Pablo Ramirez, and his star is going up, and it started to go up before I worked with him. He is so far mostly done Mexican films. He's done one, a couple of this last year with other foreign directors. He is a special creature. He draws. He is an incredible photographer. He's always got a camera around his neck, constantly, 24 hours a day, even on the set. He's a still photographer. And that was very, very helpful also for how we came up with shots and things like that. I spoke to many cinematographers, all of the greats in Mexico, or, there's a lot of greats. And also
it's a moment of great cinematographers
they know
right
how to
now.
make movies in Mexico. But lucky for me, my first narrative, which is not in my first language and not in my own country and not with any crew I knew, was in a country that makes excellent cinema. So I was in wonderful hands, production design, everything. So Juan Pablo and I went around the mulberry bush for several months. I wasn't sure that we would connect on a personal level. He's just very shy, it turned out. And then we did. And he read the script.
And you're not.
I'm not shy. I'm not shy, or at least when I'm shy, you can't tell.
Exactly. You're a good pretender.
I work a lot with very quiet, introspective people because we help each other out. And it's just nice. I like very serious people. So he had great notes on the script. He had a couple of questions for me and I ended up turning into scenes. Like he had interesting insights early days. Yeah. And so what we did was he was a little bit having PTSD because the film he had shot right before mine, there was no storyboarding. Not only storyboarding, there was no shot listing. There was no conversations. There was a director who was very, very busy with an acting career. And so they would show up on set and there was no preparation. And he was extremely upset about that experience, even though the film turned out well. So he said, you're going to shot list, right? I mean, I know you come from documentary, but you're not going to just like let things happen. I said, no. I have this opportunity to control the look for the first time in my life. I want to do that, So we spent months shot listing the movie on Zoom.
Well, I'll say it doesn't look shot listed.
Good. Because we threw the whole shot away.
Well, but that's fine. That was the process. That was the process that was.
Be prepared. Like, even if we threw it away, we're gonna have a plan. And it was good because we mostly threw the plan out, but we both felt good that we had a plan. And it turned out we both needed that. And there was a lot of spontaneous things. Now, in terms of the color palette, we spent a lot of time, but those oranges and greens. And then during the location scout, I started falling in love with certain buildings of a certain color. And he had all these ideas about.
You have some like solid blue interiors also.
Yeah.
Or even exteriors, just bathed in blue light.
Bathed in blue, like the old mansion. And so we started playing with these few colors. And a lot of things don't look lit to a naked eye, and they of course are. So there's we're using a lot of practicals, but a lot of things that look like totally natural light aren't. It's an amazing gaffer, Paquito, and working with Juan Pablo. And so he understood what I was going for, which is like this naturalism, this voyeurism, this hyper intimacy between these men. Catching all the things that are not said is the most interesting thing about a scene, right? And so we sort of got into this rhythm and this groove of all these awkward silences or sexy silences, and what must he be thinking? And I would have the actors sort of do a scene without doing any dialogue. So they would run the scene doing the dialogue in their head. And a lot of times we got these incredible expressions when they would
doing it in their head. You mean acting but not saying it?
Yeah. We would shoot it, and they were just doing the scene because I needed a lot of non-speaking moments. My editor was going to need them. And it can be awkward for actors to do that. And so we came up with all kinds of little tricks and ways for them to feel comfortable so that we could get these expressions on their face. So anyway, Juan Pablo was an excellent collaborator. And of course, you know, he is a Mexican man and I am an American woman making her first narrative with a huge crew of people, of men that I do not know. And I had heard stories from my colleagues and who had kind of warned me about tussling with the DP and having problems with her DP. And it's a thing that women directors talk about, is that these fights or power struggles and things like that. And so I was concerned. And it's funny because one time I said to him before I hired him, I said, listen, you know, he's like, I'd like you to look at my gaffer and I've got this great camera team. And I said, I want your team. I want to make you comfortable. I want you to use your people because I like what you do. And so like, let's do that. And I said, so the whole camera team is yours. I said, we can never have a public disagreement. You need to commit to me right now that if we are having a bad day or a disagreement, we have to take it private. None of this can happen in front of anyone because I am a foreign woman and I can't lose my crew. I need to make sure that I'm, you know, and I had to say it. I said it out loud and said, I'm a feminist. I was raised by a single mom. I'm working here for you and that will never happen. And it never did. But the fact that I felt that I needed to say it was just, you know, it's indicative.
Look, and it's not, of course, it's not even exclusive to Mexico. You know, it's the bullshit that it is. Let me ask you though, along those lines, talk to me about your journey warming up, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, feeling confident, feeling terrified that you're doing this movie about a different culture in a different language, about men who are not even heterosexual. So many things far from you, which by the way, I love. You know, yeah, I think anyone should be allowed to do the movie they want about anything. However, if you're outside of your thing, you will be held to another standard.
Oh, yes.
You know, so tell me about that panic or not.
Yeah, well, it could be, I never even thought about it as I was writing the movie because these are like my best friends and the movie would never be made if I didn't make it. So there wasn't a book or something that was written by a Mexican author.
Very much a director's answer, very much.
No, I'll go into the rest.
I agree with it.
But I knew that was true. Like this movie wasn't for that taking, or they weren't out for a director, and like this was an intimate friend decision. So I never had thought about it early on. Like honestly, it didn't cross my mind because I thought, well, we're doing this together, and they trust me, and then of course it was like closer to Sundance. Well, let's go. Let's go.
But you're in Mexico. I mean, that's at the beginning. Then you're in Mexico.
I'm in Mexico. And well, first I'm writing the script in English. And then I bring on, after a few drafts, I bring on an excellent writer, Alan Page Arriaga, who's Arriaga's nephew. And he helps me finish the movie. And so, of course, now I have a Mexican co-writer. So I'm already feeling, you know, between Iván and Gerardo and the transcripts and my many visits to their family, to their hometowns, to their friends over the years, many, many times. And I've got Alan. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm doing all these checks and balances and checking myself. Is there something inaccurate here? Would this not happen? Would this not be said? It's 1994. And there's the gay scene in Puebla. Don't exaggerate it. Don't make it look like it's illegal to be gay, but don't make it look like it's so then there was that whole era, like, what would it be like in Puebla in 1994? Now I had Iván and Gerardo to talk to me. Then I had the real Kakusa, who helped me. And then but it was always like checking, like, would this word really be said, this piece of slang? There was all of that was going on, which everybody helped me with. But then I'm in Mexico, location scouting, and I'm meeting actors and chatting with them. And I started.
How fluent is your Spanish at that point?
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Hablo bien. I mean, it's like, it's pretty good. Okay. They say it's good. It's pretty good. It's not, now it's even better, but I don't think it's
but you were fluent. It wasn't a struggle.
No, there's never any misunderstanding. Never misunderstandings of any kind ever on a language level. But then I'm there and I'm like starting to think, I'm sitting down with an actor and he's running, and then the script is in perfect Spanish. There's no errors, But then I started, you know, the guy who plays Gerardo's father, and that who's from Chiapas, the scene is in Chiapas. And he said, you know, the way the word we use for, well, the derogatory word we use for a gay person in Chiapas is mampo. And it's a very strong, terrible word. And so he said, you know, that's what he said. I grew up in a tiny town in Chiapas, and two sort of effeminate soccer players disappeared one summer. They were kids and we never saw them again. We think they were killed. Like, he started telling me stories about growing up where Gerardo grew up. And so I changed a couple of words and I checked.
He used that word.
That's right. And I put it in the script.
He calls the little boy that.
Mampo. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'd never heard the word, but in the context, you know exactly what he's saying. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is that conversation led me to, every time I would meet with an actor, we would talk about, I would listen to how the dialogue was coming out. I said, would you say it any differently? And, you know, and someone oh, my father was just like this. My father was a drug. And so I said, could I put that in the script? So basically I started making tiny alterations into the script based on the actors themselves, what they told me, how things came out of their mouth. So I really started adapting a little bit of the scenes. Because I was learning a great deal, because now I'm on the ground in Mexico and I've got people saying, oh yeah, I grew up in this exact town and my father used to say this and I used to go to this club. And so I started getting even more confidence to sort of loosen things up. And that was because I wanted to get it right. I was very, very worried about getting it wrong, about embarrassing not only myself, embarrassing my friends, embarrassing the crew, and making a film that felt like a gringa made it. I was extremely conscious of it, but more and more only on the ground. If I had felt that way when I was writing, I wouldn't have made the movie. Luckily, that started happening to me when I'm on the ground, the responsibility of doing this. And what am I doing? How is it that I'm doing this? I need help. I need their help. So I was, you know, I really included people and to make sure that I was doing it, that it felt right. It felt Mexican. And the first day, it was 4:30 in the morning. It was my first day of shooting. I could barely stand up. I was extremely nauseous. I was extremely scared. I couldn't believe all these years had come to this. And we got the whole crew in a circle. We were in the country. We were shooting the Chiapas, the rancho. The first week was the rancho, which is like the end of the first act. And we all got in a circle.
The richer guy's ranch.
Yeah, that's right.
Get out of those family ranch.
We got that week first, yeah. And everybody was like sort of out of town. We were staying at a hotel. You know, it was like good for crew bonding. I wanted everyone to be. It was good for us all to be out of town. And we were standing in a circle. It was pitch dark, and there's no one there except my editor, who I've known for 15 years. And she decided to get up at 3 a.m. and be there for me. And I'm talking to the crew in Spanish, and I'm saying, this is a story about my friends. I want you to be proud of this movie. I want to get it right. I'm asking you to help me get it right. I want this to be your movie. This is a Mexican movie. It's a co-production. Please help me get it right. And they listened. And then I said, if you've got something you want to say to me or talk to me about, or pull me aside, I'm open. And then I said, and if you have a complaint, no hablo español. And they laughed, no entiendo nada. But it was really an emotional thing for me. And I think everyone was like, oh, she's serious. And it became our movie. It is a Mexican-American co-production. It really is. And they're proud of it, my crew. So that was very, very important to me in the making of it. Now, then you go back home and you edit the movie and you're in like this bubble, and then this book, American Dirt, comes out and people are really mad about this author, and she got everything wrong about a desert crossing and it's none of her business and who should be telling these stories. Then we go to Sundance and it's like, wait, Heidi Ewing made a movie in Spanish, and it was just like, oh man, I was like, oh, maybe there are going to people be mad. Like we were already at Sundance when I was like, I think we did it right. I think we've done this right. I'm proud of it. Like I really hope I'm not held, it's not held against the movie, my nationality, or my gender or my straightness or whatever. I was like, please don't take the movie down because of this. That's all I could hope for. And very early on, Remezcla and Carlos Aguilar and several Latino and Latinx publications and the Latinx House got behind the movie very early and started writing about it. And one of his articles was, "This is when it can work. This is not American Dirt. It can
Yes,
work."
it can work because in the end, it's how genuine is it? You know, how real and how human and how, yeah, I look, I understand, you know, the discussion around cultural appropriation is necessary, super, you know, sometimes it's very clear cut, sometimes it's very complicated. You know, as a director, I have to think anyone should be free to try any subject, but
you
know,
better,
if you're,
better bring it.
you better bring it, you better bring it, because, yeah, you better bring it. And I think you brought it. Your editor did a very nice job. I know movies are edited between two people, you know, but still, you know, it's very nicely edited. It's very, there's a lot of intimacy in the scenes. There's a lot of nice tension. There's actually intimacy in a lot of two shots, you know, which is my favorite shot in a movie, is always a two shot, because you can see the two universes together. You know, that whole back and forth. So had you worked with her before?
She's cut every single one of my documentaries I've ever made. I've worked with her.
But she had never cut a scripted movie?
Oh.
Well, kudos to her also.
Yeah, she's nominated.
I'm sorry, I'm not texting. What I did is I took stills, I took screen grabs of your entire movie.
Amazing.
So, because that's my way of doing notes. You know, things take me back to things.
The visual mind. I love that.
Yeah.
She's
I'm going to show you one. I'm going to show you one of my favorite frames in your movie.
Okay.
In case you haven't seen it.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Wonderful.
Me too. That was day 3 of shooting. That was day 3. That was, you know, let me tell you about that location. Okay, so this is another thing when you're a documentary filmmaker who suddenly gets to location scout and choose everything. We got to go to that farmhouse, and my Juan Pablo and I scrambled up an ladder, and the owner's like, no, por allá no está seguro. You can't go in there. Peligroso. The floor's broken. We go up, and it's this attic, and that light was coming through those little concrete blocks in the attic, and I said, I have to move the scene.
And it had the view of the ranch.
And it has the view of the ranch, and we go put the father out there. I had that scene set somewhere else, like in a barn or something. It was similar, but not. And I saw this location. I said, can we fix the floor so that 4 of us, maybe we'll just have a limited crew, or 3 of us can fit up here, or the actors plus me, and you know. And so we got an engineer to fix the floor, and I moved the scene up there. And we knew exactly when the light was going to be there. And that just, that's natural light too. And just like there's so much texture, and I love that frame too. It's just, it's everything. It's everything.
So in the end, we see him in Mexico, right? And there's so many unanswered questions, of course.
Well, he's in Mexico in his mind. He's in New York though. But
did you shoot that in Mexico? Where he's in the taxi? Him in the taxi.
The actor.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yes. The actor. Yeah. The real Iván, of course, can't go to Mexico. But the actor.
The young guy.
Yes. That was in.
That was. Yeah, it's funny because it's a film that is. Like I said before, it has this sort of slippery quality where, you know what it made me think? It made me think of this idea that there is poetry and there's a good story anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to undermine your story.
No,
and certainly the idea of, you know, being rejected for who you are in your country, at home is horrible. And that's a conflict that's big enough. And then, of course, being exiled and not being able to come back and separation from a son, those are all big subjects. But it wasn't, thinking back on it all and from what you've told me, it couldn't have been evident to anyone but a nutcase director like you that there was a movie there at all.
Yeah.
So I think it's a testament to if you dig, if you have the eye, if you have the empathy, if you have the compassion, if you connect to things, you can tell a wonderful movie about a day changing the tires in your car. Yeah. And again, I don't want to downplay the drama in your movie, but it has a feel that is very much like, everyone's life is worthy of telling. Because, by the way, sadly, people who have escaped their world because they're gay, or people who are illegal in a country and can't go back, unfortunately, that's not even a very particular situation. Mm-hmm. We all know about that.
That's right.
But the success is in feeling that you looked close and you looked with empathy. And I think your affection for these guys is super clear, and their affection for each other. I mean, the titles, the final thing with their pictures, and I'm looking at that. I'm still recuperating from that line. You are my surprise. I thought that was just beautiful.
Yeah.
So listen. Now you're a director. You're screwed, because your brain is going to be thinking, what am I going to write now? What am I going to do? You know what I mean? You're already settled into documentary. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but now you have a whole new field in which in which you can be obsessed and miserable.
I know.
Welcome.
I thank you for welcoming me. It's already started happening. I'm sleeping 4 hours. I'm writing another movie because it was so much easier before, because most things shouldn't be documentaries. They can't be. You don't have the access. They won't, you can't go to their house. They passed away. It happens in a different country. You can say, oh, I can't make it. Okay. I can't do that. But now, if you can invent things, there's just so many more stories you can tell.
Yeah, it's much easier to be to create so much. Can you talk, or do you want to talk about what the world of your next scripted thing might be?
Yeah, you're gonna think I'm even crazier than I'm almost embarrassed to say. There's a book, I can talk about it. Yeah, it's called How to Tame a Fox and Build a Dog. It's a true story of two intrepid, brave scientists in Soviet Russia in a time when there was really a war on science, that embark on a wild experiment involving foxes. And
breeding foxes?
They are trying to recreate the 30,000 years it took for the wolf to become the dog.
I've read articles, not about this, but a little bit.
An experiment, yeah. So it's based on two people. She's still alive. She's 89, and she's still in Siberia doing the experiment, which is the most robust and important evolution.
What does she still have a direct line? Meaning, is she in generation number 71?
Oh yeah. No, we're in 70 years in. Oh, and all kinds of scientists are over there, and they've mapped the genome and of the foxes, and
are some of the foxes totally human friendly, domesticated?
Like living in homes. Yeah, you can buy them.
They're like little dogs. Yeah, I remember reading an article that even and it could have been them, because I read it years ago, that by picking the friendlier cubs or puppies, whatever you call them in the fox, already by the fourth generation, they were considerably more human friendly than their great grandparents.
Not only that, their different genes were activated, and their tails became curly, their fur became mottled, the cartilage in their ears softened, and the ears came down to make them cuter and more attractive to us. They started barking, they started laughing, they started doing things that foxes do not do in the wild, like mate more than once a year. Their genes were altered through domestication, and that's what they were trying to find out. It wasn't
the gene of love was activated.
That's right. It's a great story because it's also like there's all kinds of twists and turns, and a lot of there's real dangers that they encountered and loneliness. It's about the friendship between this man and this woman scientist, and the relationship between humans and animals. And I'm writing it right now, and it takes place in Russia in 1952, between 1952 and 1985. I'm going to shoot it in English though.
Yeah.
I'm not shooting this in Russian. I can't do that. So,
That's tough,
yeah, no. So it's a beautiful story, and and the co-writer is an evolutionary, but he wrote it with Ludmilla, who's one of the subjects, and he's an evolutionary biologist. And I called him up, and he goes, "My wife always said this should be a narrative." So,
good.
Anyway, yeah, I'm working on that.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time, but again, congrats on your movie. And I enjoy all its success. It's very deserved. I found it very human and very touching. And the gift that the guys were real at the end for me was wonderful. Another reason never to see a trailer. I mean, the movie had been recommended, so that's how I see movies.
Okay.
But many congrats.
Thank you. I can't wait till it comes to the public. Sony Pictures Classics has held it for a year. We had 6 opening dates that are lost, and now it's opening May 21st. And the trailers started running today at the Angelica Cinema in New York. It just reopened.
Wonderful.
So,
well, those guys, if they held it for a year, it's because they it's a sign of how attached they are to it.
They are, and they believe in it. Yeah. The theatrical audience, and I agree. So
yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure. We'll do it again with the foxes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay tuned for future episodes featuring a conversation with director Don Mischer, and for our annual Meet the Nominees series, which will feature panel discussions with DGA Award-nominated directors Lee Isaac Chung, Emerald Fennell, David Fincher, Aaron Sorkin, and Chloe Zhao. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.